How many of you were here last year when we talked about the ascendance of intelligence? Okay, quite a few. Um, this year, I want to continue the talk. It's kind of like a continuation. And Dr. Chinna just touched on when AI helps us, it is not going to replace us, but it's actually going to help us to a point where we have more time. And that's what we are going to talk today. Apologies for the tech issues here. Last year when I was here, we talked about the rise of intelligence because I think about 12 months ago, we were still talking about what would AI look like in a mature state. I think in 12 months we have progressed a lot. Lots of things have changed. And a true fact, as I stand here and give this talk, I have a number of agents, AI agents, that are actively coding and building systems in the background. And I'm no longer bound to my desktop. I am no longer bound to my laptop. And there are AI engineers that are continuously implementing things as I stand here and talk to you. And so that is the ascendance of intelligence that we are going to talk. We are well on our path to mastering intelligence, and I have 3 sections in this talk. I'll talk about how we are putting out frontier models from our DeepMind research labs in solving really frontier problems from a model capability perspective. And then the second part I'll talk about is how that frontier technologies are shaping the way we work. And then I will leave you with a new prediction this year that's kind of a continuation of the last year's prediction stuff. So the first one, you probably may remember this from the last year's talk. The models are advancing at a pace where you are going to see exponential improvements in all these dimensions. There will be world knowledge baked into our models, and there will be reasoning, which is agentic planning and autonomously doing things. Then there is the multimodality, which means that you can talk to our models using language, or you can input text, or you can input videos or images, just like humans do. And then at the end, you also have systems at this point where most of the AI systems have very long context, just like humans do. And also they have different types of memories, procedural memories, episodic memories, and semantic memories, just the way that our brain processes information and continuously stores and retrieves information based on our memories. All of these things are real, and then they are already in use today. And what these breakthroughs are leading to is, I know we all talk about Geminis and ChatGPTs as chatbots, but the bigger breakthroughs are happening if you pay attention to what's happening in the adjacent fields of the mainstream AI. I'll highlight some of the breakthroughs here. The first one I want to point out is the real world model. And I don't know how many of you have heard of the Genie model that comes from DeepMind. Genie model is different from any of the AI systems that you have used. Unlike ChatGPTs and Gemini apps of the world, Genie kind of builds the simulations of entire real world. And if you imagine how we process the world today, you have physics and visualization and the facts and semantic facts all mapped into how you perceive the room. You look around, you understand how the room is structured, you understand humans are sitting, and you understand the distance and the spatial nature of the place. All of that is encoded in your brain. And today there are models that can simulate the entire physics and render these things in utmost realistic imagery using the Genie models. And that model is already live, and it's actually on our labs product. You can play with it today. The second adjacent AI area that I want to highlight, and this is the AlphaFold 3, which is now the 3rd generation of the AlphaFold. The 1st generation and 2nd generation are already being used by millions and millions of scientists across the world in doing a number of drug discovery and disease discovery type of research. Typically would take a year or so for people to go through the wet labs and then predict the three-dimensional structure of the proteins. Using AlphaFold, you can actually simulate entire protein structure and then do the drug discovery and related research building on top of that in a matter of days. And you already see these breakthroughs happening on a daily basis, and a number of medical breakthroughs are going to, drug discovery breakthroughs are going to happen because of this technology. And the third adjacent AI tech that I think you should all pay attention to is the material science. Material science is known to us as a very hard scientific problem. With AI and reinforcement learning, we are able to now simulate a number of materials that are unknown to human, and then we are able to predict all these material structures and their properties, and we put it out there again for research use. And you should also check this out as an adjacent AI area that's happening rapidly. And the reason why and then of course the last one, robotics. Dr. Chinna talked about the robotics, and there is different gradations of robotics that we are talking about. The new generation of robotics will bring in not just the mechanical parts of the robotics, but also the vision and the thinking process of robotics also baked into a single system. And we have robotics models that we have put out, and they are available for research use as well. Now, the reason why I think all of these things are important is that as the AI evolves and gets you to things that you have not done before, which is discovering new materials, discovering new drugs, and being able to simulate entire worlds with accurate physics and geometry using AI, it's going to open up a lot more fields that we have not really explored. And last year I actually talked about this as a breakthrough moment. AI is like electricity, perhaps bigger. For electricity, the biggest breakthrough was, the initial breakthrough was when there is a light bulb. That's when people realized it's actually useful. The illumination extended our day. We were able to do more things because we were able to use that light to do more things even after dark. The chatbots that we use, whether it's ChatGPTs or Geminis of the world, is like the light bulb moment. For the first time, it taught us AI can be helpful. But the reality is, just like the electricity, the transformation for the society did not happen with the light bulb alone. The real transformation happened when you took that electricity as a power and put that into these electric motors, induction motors as a concept. You were able to transfer the central power to a very distributed power systems. That's what really spurred the industrial revolution, and that's what really moved humanity from doing physical mechanical labor into a electric powered economy where most of the human labor is done through machines. With AI, we are going to go through the same transformation. The chatbots that you see today are like light bulbs. That's not the end state. The final state for AI is going to have agents, AI agents, that act and work and behave like just us, the humans. But they are actually working on systems that you and I design. They are working on things that you and I ask, and they are working behalf of us to help us gain our time, just the way that motors gave us the time back so we can do more with our life. And as this transition happens from chatbots to AI agentic systems, if you are in this room building a system for anybody, not just for medical, but even if it's a commercial software, know that for the last 25 years of software engineering, we have been focused on delegating work to computers on only data processing. But now with the AI agents, the reality is most of your users will expect you to build systems where they can delegate thinking, not just processing. So the question that we should ask is, as we build the future of systems, how do we build software, how do we build products that just don't do data processing, but how do they bring thinking into the mix? So I talked about these 5 predictions of how the software is going to evolve last year. The good news is most of that has become true. And I talked about how software we built for humans will also be used by agents. How many of you have heard of something called OpenClaw? Many of you. And how many of you have heard of something called Hermes? Is the other agent? Okay, many of you. So those are the kind of agents that are already autonomous. They are powered by this intelligent brain, and they are actually using your computer or a virtual machine if you host it, and they are using your browser, and they are able to do things that you and I do using web, using your laptop, and writing shell scripts and so on and so forth. So the agents that are now available in the market can pretty much do what you and I can do, and perhaps even more. But they are using the same software that we have built in the last 25 years. The second thing that I talked about is that all of us are going to look at how users are using software, but also I think we'll start paying attention to how agents are using software. If you have a website, very likely that website, if you are seeing a number of increased visits, very likely that some of those visits are actually coming from non-human agents. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. And so we need to pay attention to how agents are actually using our software. Third one that I talked about is how humans and AI are going to collaborate. All of us, every single one of us today use a type of agent, whether it's ChatGPT or Gemini app or Claude Cowork or any of these agents that you are using today is a continuous back and forth with AI as a collaboration. And that collaboration will only deepen. And the collaboration will become more and more autonomous where, as I was saying at the beginning of the talk, you simply ask the agent to go do work. And in fact, on my phone, I just did that right before I walked here. The agent is working away on a bunch of coding tasks. I'll go back and check it. And when I'm done, and I'll finish submitting the code. And that will continue to evolve. And the second thing, the fourth thing I talked about is at some point, we'll start an inflection where all software that we are writing will be agent first at some point. And I think we are actually approaching that point. Many of the software today, if you look at, there is a new layer of interface that we are calling the command line interface, the CLIs. The CLIs are going to be more and more built first for agents, which means that agents, when they come to tool use, and they are going to use CLI as the first order interface to access your software. And the fifth one, this was my last prediction last year, and I have a new one this year. When the agent collaboration happens, the human supervision, which we routinely call human in the loop, will become the norm. And whether it is about the medical systems, whether it is about healthcare, or even the business systems, you will need human in the loop as a fundamental primitive on the way you design systems, and that's going to be the norm. Now, last year I said, okay, we'll start our journey of software built for humans and software built for agents, and there is going to be uncanny valley of some time that will go through that transition. And I think, I personally believe that we are actually smack middle of that transformation right now, and it's happening. And what it means is that this is this year's prediction that I want to leave you all with. And there is a lot of talk about how AI is going to replace humans. And I think it's exact opposite is going to happen. How many of you get some kind of a help from somebody in your life? Everybody. Thank you. Everybody. That doesn't mean that our helpers are replacing us. Our helpers are helping us to do and prioritize our time and things better. And we are grateful for that. AI is going to be that helper for you. AI is going to help you take away your boring and routine tasks that you can delegate and give you the bandwidth and capabilities that you did not have before. By end of this year, I will predict that every one of you, whether it's in your job or in your personal life, will be a manager of an agent, if not multiple agents. You will have a team of agents working for you all the time. And that's going to be the norm. And that does not mean that AI is replacing you. It just means that it's enhancing you in your capabilities. And what that leads to is that what we call these superhuman capabilities. We are not that far from accomplishing what we call the 10x humans. We are able to delegate more and more to the AI, which means 90% of the tasks that we do today, the cognitive tasks, I'm not talking about the data processing tasks, 90% of the tasks we'll be able to delegate to AI. And that happens in two ways. One, if you are writing a document or if you are writing a slide deck, which is your typical knowledge work, you are going to be able to accomplish that in a couple of minutes, and you won't take hours and days. Same thing for coding and so on and so forth. So as you get to that state of like accomplishing tasks really fast, you are going to gain more time. And with that new time, you are going to use that for new tasks. You are going to learn new things. There are designers in the US today in our company that do coding, and there are engineers that do design. And then now everybody is becoming a builder of some sort. And I think that's going to be the norm for all of us. And with that newfound time, I think we'll be able to explore more scientific horizons with the power of AI. Whether it is exploring material science or energy or figuring out how the nature works. I think the possibilities are going to be endless. And that's where I think the beginning of superhuman era is starting with the AI. So that's all I have. Thank you for your attention. And I don't know if you have questions.
Thank you so much. Over to the chairpersons to coordinate a brief time of Q&A.
This is a wonderful session. You talked about AGI, right? So when do we realize that we're actually moving in from the AI era to the AGI era? How do we kind of get to a conclusion that, hey, this is happening?
It's a good question. I don't think there is a lot of scientific debate on how to quantify AGI and how to put a marker on the timeline and say, okay, this is it. Many people predict, I think the AGI movement is going to happen anywhere between next 5 to 10 years. Now the transition is not going to be like a binary movement from your like, okay, today there's no AGI and tomorrow there is AGI. But the transition is going to be a lot more gradual, right? There are some areas today where if you were to tell me a couple of years ago that this would be possible, I would be laughing. And I will pick the area that I live and breathe every day, which is software engineering. If you were to tell me that I would be able to bring up and code an entire system from my phone sitting here in Hyderabad while my systems are back in Bay Area, I would not believe it. But today, an army of agents will be able to build really complex systems from ground up with very little human supervision and then come back to me and then report on the updates. There are movements of AGI that is showing up in bits and pieces in certain domains. But the generality of AGI, I think there are known gaps. And the known gaps are not just in our models today in terms of how they have the knowledge and then how they process tokens, but there's also something called continuous learning. And we are starting, from a research perspective, there are areas where we are starting to spend a lot of time on the self-reflection. And when the self-reflection happens, just like humans, how do we take notes and then continuously learn? So that loop, I think, is the next frontier of research. As our capabilities improve on existing tools, and as we bring the research to fruition, especially on self-reflection and self-learning, I think we'll get closer to that moment. But it's going to happen over the next 5 to 10 years.
Thank you. Can we have just one last, sir, if that is okay?
Chandu, excellent talk. And when we look at it, AI is going to replace almost, going to contribute in all walks of life. And a lot of research is happening in various places like your company. And when you look at the healthcare, even finance, so do you have separate verticals for all these things, or you have basically the concept is same everywhere, or you have do it everything together?
It's a good question. I think the generality of the models today is most of the models are built with very much what we call the universal knowledge, because we take a single model, and when you do the benchmarks, the same model was able to perform at a physics PhD level and a math PhD level and a finance person's, a professional finance person's caliber. So the models are good enough to perform all of the tasks across all domains, which is impossible for a given human, right? So the models are there. Then what is the gap in terms of how to put them into use? The biggest gap becomes that most of the tools that we have built in the last 50 years or so, especially the digital tools, are very much domain specific and custom built. So the gap right now, when you look at any domain specific AI implementation, the gap is really taking a very knowledgeable model in every domain and then teaching it on how to use our existing systems that are built for humans. But that gap is very easy to fix, and that gap is closing very quickly. So the reality is the same model will be able to scale, and domain-specific implementations are mostly adaptations of the existing tools for the model to use for your task, right? And we are able to do this externally, internally, and we are able to scale it across the globe, independent of region or a country or whatnot.